Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to unpack an esoteric, highly structured, and frankly, absolutely fascinating 19th century text. It's called the Haykal al-Dīn, which translates to the Book of the Temple of Religion. If you've ever wondered what it looks like when a spiritual leader attempts to design a society completely from scratch, from the cosmic laws of the universe all the way down to the exact weight of a chickpea, well, this is the document. To kick things off, let's put a face to the name. This is the Bāb, a prominent 19th century religious figure and the author of this incredibly demanding text. What we're exploring today isn't just a loose collection of spiritual thoughts, It's a rigid, comprehensive blueprint for a completely new reality, specifically designed to govern basically every waking moment of his followers' lives.
But before we get into the weeds of the specific laws, we really have to understand the foundation. The Haykal al-Dīn acts as an architectural blueprint for a new society, and it rests entirely on the absolute authority of the Bāb's central, most important revelation, a text known as the Bāyan. So think of the Bāyan as the Constitution, and the Haykal al-Dīn as both the penal code and the daily operating manual that actually enforces it.
Now, the original text can be a bit of a maze, jumping sporadically between cosmic theology and literal, earthly finds. To make sense of it all, we're going to break it down into 5 key areas: the temple of religion, unity in the Bāyan, the power of 19, jewels, purity, and laws, and finally, the future divine manifestation.
Starting right off with Section 1, the Temple of Religion, the macro foundation.
The text kicks off by establishing the absolute, unalterable unity of God. It states, "He witnessed that there is no God but Him. He is the ruler, the owner of both realms." This brilliantly captures the macro level of the Bāb's theology. It makes it crystal clear that everything in the realm of command and creation bows down to Him forever. There is zero room for debate here. God owns both realms and every single soul is His servant. That supreme overarching authority is the solid bedrock for everything else that follows.
Which leads us straight into Section 2, Unity and the Bāyan, the ultimate proof.
So with God's authority established, how does that manifest on earth? Well, the Bāb establishes the supreme authority of his central book, the Bāyan. It's presented as the ultimate, unchangeable proof for every soul. In fact, the text explicitly claims that even if everyone in the heavens and the earth gathered together to try and produce a single verse like it, they would fail. It is the unalterable command from the Lord of the worlds, and it sets the rigid boundaries for all the laws we're about to see. You just can't understand this society without grasping that the Bāyan is absolute law. All right, Section 3. The power of 19 and organizing reality. This is where we hit the structural obsession of this society. The number 19 is sacred. And I don't just mean it's a symbolic number. It acts as the literal fundamental building block for how time, commerce, and daily worship are entirely reorganized in this new world. We're talking a complete restructuring of reality here. The calendar completely reworked into 19 months, with exactly 19 days in each month. Believers are commanded to declare God's unity exactly 19 times a day, but it goes way further than just time and prayer. It dictates everyday commerce. The text establishes that the fundamental unit of weight, the mithqal, must equal exactly 19 pieces of chickpeas. It is a total, almost obsessive synchronization of daily life to this single numerical value. Moving into Section 4, jewels, purity, and laws, the granular structure. The Bāb takes those mithqals we just talked about and ties them directly to specific precious metals and stones. It's a highly visual, material way to measure spiritual purity and hand out societal fines. For instance, if you veil yourself, which is a term for failing to recognize spiritual truths, the penalties scale based on what you knew. A lesser infraction might cost you 5 mithqals of yellow copper. But if you turn away after true knowledge has actually come to you, the fine escalates to 5 mithqals of emerald or diamond or red ruby. And for the gravest earthly crimes, like intentional killing, the penalty is set at exactly 19 mithqals of gold. It's a stunning blend of deep spirituality and hard material cost.
This intense control strictly governs the entire human life cycle, leaving nothing to chance. Take a look at the contrasting yet equally structured physical rituals here. To welcome a newborn baby, believers have to say God is greater exactly 5 times and follow that up each time with exactly 19 verses. Then, on the complete other end of life, death rituals are just as specific. The body must be washed 5 times with honor, wrapped in silk or cotton, and buried in crystal or stone if possible, or clay if not. The aesthetic and physical purity of a believer has to be maintained from their very first breath all the way to the grave.
And, as you might expect, this control extends right into family planning. Marriage is strictly commanded to ensure the continuity of the faith. Once a child reaches 11 years of age, parents are actually instructed to marry them off. The text mandates securing offspring, and most importantly, it explicitly states that believers are only permitted to marry those who have already entered the Bābī. This reveals a society intensely focused on producing, protecting, and isolating a perfectly pure lineage of believers.
Which brings us to our final section, Part 5, the future divine manifestation and the prophetic purpose of it all.
Because here is the real kicker, the incredible twist to this entire blueprint. Every single law, every fine paid in emerald or gold, every daily prayer of 19 verses we've discussed, it's all actually designed for one singular future event. This central axis of this entire document is to prepare humanity for a future messianic figure. Throughout the text, he's referred to poetically as the one whom God will manifest, and the Bāb states completely unequivocally that this figure has no equal, peer, or likeness anywhere in all the sons of reality. To prepare for this anticipated Son of Reality, followers have to strictly adhere to the laws and offer him unquestioning authority. The preparations are immense. Followers are warned not to interpret the Bābī in any creative way. It has to be preserved perfectly for his arrival. Kings are literally commanded to build architecture, specifically a house upon 95 gates facing this future figure. The text decrees that all conquered land and the very eye of commerce belong entirely to him. And the spiritual stakes, they're absolute. Dying without the pleasure of the one whom God will manifest means you die forever. Your deeds are just totally nullified. So what this explainer ultimately highlights is how the Bāb constructed this elaborate, jewel-encrusted, numerologically precise society. It was never just about creating rules for the present. It was built from the ground up to await and serve this specific future figure. It is a society perpetually looking toward the horizon, desperately keeping its laws, its chickpea weights, and its marriages perfectly pure for the day he finally arrives.
Which leaves us with one incredibly profound question. After detailing all of these monumentally strict preparations, the 19-month calendars, the emerald finds, the crystal burials, you really have to wonder, what happens to this perfectly rigid society when the one whom God will manifest actually steps into the temple? Does the rigid structure hold, or does his arrival just change absolutely everything? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll leave you to ponder that exact question.